Are we good? Take a sip.
He started the episode just there.
Good. I'm gonna itch my nose. Okay. Here we go. Welcome to the 17:6 podcast, where we help you turn the world upside down by the Lordship of Christ. I'm Trevor.
I'm Zach.
And welcome to the last show of the year. I know that there's a lot of channels not doing anything, but at the 17:6 podcast,
We're workaholics.
we make sure that we, have a new episode every week.
Yeah, we don't take time off.
Even in the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
We're here for you. So since all your other subscriptions on YouTube are not producing any shows for the next 2 weeks or the previous week and then this week, we expect our views to be up quite a bit. So this is
right.
It's really that's the play.
Yeah, that sure did not work last week, did it?
No, we got a solid 10 views.
Yeah.
So dang it.
The week before that,
It was good. Letting the bodies hit the floor.
yeah, everyone likes letting the bodies hit the floor.
Who doesn't like that song?
Yeah. And this is actually a good follow-up episode.
It is.
We're going to see some bodies hit the floor in this episode.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, real quick shout out to Kirsten, who critiqued our using books as coasters in one of the first episodes. And then my wife bought us coasters because I guess she was appalled by it as well. And that really came in handy today.
This morning, specifically right before the episode, I spilled some coffee on the coaster, though. It was just the coaster. I was showing off this cool coffee mug that I got given to me, and then I wasn't paying attention. I just spilled some coffee.
But it wasn't on a book. It was on a coaster.
Yeah. It didn't get on the table either.
Oh, praise the
Cool.
Lord.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. So thank you thank you to the sponsors of the show, Zach's wife and Caleb's wife.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Thanks, guys. All right. So we're in Acts chapter 12 today.
That's right. As you can see, it's just Zach and I again. So that leads us, before we get into the episode, we're going to take just a brief jaunt over to our producer to see what he has for us. Is he going to bring up the video? I don't know if he's going to or not.
I don't know if I'm video ready.
Oh, okay.
Ready
All
this
right.
morning.
You didn't put your makeup on?
I did.
Okay.
It's early.
That it is.
Okay. So with tradition.
I don't know if you guys realize this, but babysitter is a long-held job, even back in biblical times. Do you know who the greatest babysitter was in the Bible?
No.
No idea.
It was David. He rocked Goliath to sleep.
Man. It's the biggest. Okay. That was good.
That was
good job.
funny.
I got smirk. I'm good with it.
Good job. Yeah. I mean, I was laughing before we got to the punchline. I didn't know where we were going with
Where
that.
is this going?
Yeah. Okay.
I was just weaving a tail.
It was good. Just like our President Day.
I've been listening to that Rogan episode.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, it's
about weaving his stories.
that's right. It's kind of funny that he talks like that on purpose. But anyway, okay. Sorry, I digress. Let's talk about Acts 12 and watching the bodies hit the floor. Specifically, watching, remembering that time that King Herod got worms and then died.
Yes.
That's what I want to.
Yep. So this is going to be
minutes on.
an instruction episode. For those of you who are curious, how do I not get worms? We are going to be addressing that specifically today.
It's exciting times. And
So
you're
a very
welcome.
practical episode.
It is.
Help turn the world upside down by not getting worms.
Yeah. And dying. Specifically in that order.
In that order.
Okay, so Acts 12, we're going to see in this chapter just that the enemies of God are going to be put to death. So we're seeing really this, I don't want to steal your thunder, but we're seeing the outworking of Psalm 110. That's great. So verses 1 through 5 in Acts 12, we're going to have James killed, the brother of John, not the brother of Jesus. He's killed, and then Peter's imprisoned. Then the following verses 6 through 19 is when Peter is rescued by an angel. It's a jailbreak, a God ordained jailbreak. Think about that for a second. All right. And then at the very end, verses 20 through 25, we have the death of Herod.
Yeah. So I look at this chapter as like King Jesus versus King Herod, and we have a clear victor in the end.
Yeah. Easy.
Yep. So, all right. Are we ready to jump into it?
Let's do it.
All right. So it opens up with about the time that Herod the king laid violent hands on some who belonged to the church. So we jump right into some persecution. The persecution has amped up because it's no longer just Jewish individuals
Right.
who are persecuting the church, or even Jewish groups. We have officially gone into the political realm at this point. There are kings who are now persecuting the church.
So coming out of this time of peace where the church has grown tremendously, so much so that the kings of nations or of lands are taking notice.
And that's because they view the church as a threat.
Yeah.
And that's the reason they're persecuting the church, is because they're looking at this group of people and they're like, this is a threat to who I am. It's because these people are proclaiming a new king.
Exactly.
It is King Jesus.
Yes.
So the two specific things that are called out, the two specific persecutions that are called out, of course, James, the brother of John, being killed with a sword, and Peter being imprisoned. And this was to please the Jews.
Yes.
It says that, well, I don't know if it was to please the Jews, but it says that it did in fact please the Jews.
Yes. And when it says Jews here, I'm wondering if we can think of the way that John uses Jews in his gospel. These are like the religious leaders. This isn't all the Jewish people, because this is primarily,
Yes.
the church is primarily made up of Jewish.
Yeah. Even though we are coming off Acts 10 and 11 with the gospel going to the Gentiles, at this point in time, it really is still predominantly Jewish.
Yeah,
So you're probably right in that.
So this happened though at the days of unleavened bread. So this is right after Passover, but does this mean Jesus was just crucified and we're coming off of that? That's not the case. This is time has gone on. A few years have passed. We don't know how many years really.
Right.
I don't know if you ever found a timeline for this, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
So we've had persecution, time of peace, back to persecution.
Right. So it's really easy when you're reading a book of the Bible to not recognize how much time is going by.
Right.
It's kind of like watching Lord of the Rings, the movies.
Okay.
You're like, oh, this all happened in a matter of a few weeks. And you read the books, you're like, oh, this did not happen in a matter of a few weeks. So Acts is kind of the same way. It kind of feels like, oh, this is back to back to back to back action.
Yes.
And then a lot of times we go to everyday church life and like, why are we not seeing this kind of action back to back to back to back? Why is there long periods of boring stuff going on? And that's really what's going on in Acts. There really are long periods of, nothing eventful going on, but we're getting the highlights of it, and we're back to a highlight now.
Yeah, I came to that realization of the Bible has compacted just many events in over a long period of time, just really quickly. When our pastor was going through Exodus, and then we went into Judges, and it was like, that's like 300 years from the last page of Exodus to the first page of Judges. And we're like, how did they get to this point of doing right in their own eyes? Didn't God just deliver them?
Right.
300 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's a interesting point. All right. So this is happening during the time of the Passover, which means that there's lots of traveling Jews in the area now.
Yes.
Which means that this is kind of like on stage. This is not business as normal. I think King Herod probably was intentional about this. Like, now I'm going to take Peter, who is a leader of this new movement, and now he's going to be imprisoned, and James, another leader, and I'm going to have him killed.
And this is all one, yes, the church was a threat, but also King Herod really wanted to be liked. We see that at the end of this chapter. Like, he's probably doing this, like you said, to set a stage so that people know that King Herod is great. We should honor Herod because he loves himself.
Right.
So, let's see. So we talked about, persecution is now from government officials. We're going to move down unless you have anything else. Oh, yeah, there's one more thing. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to make the point that for those of us who are trying to turn the world upside down by the lordship of Christ, we really do need to take time to prepare for persecution.
Absolutely.
Even because, again, this is coming off the heels of a time of peace. So, which means that it would not have been natural to prepare for this kind of persecution. Like, we go from, there's peace, and then now James is being killed.
Right.
And we need to anticipate or prepare for that kind of thing. And especially as fathers of the house, like, what practical steps do we take to prepare for that?
That's a good question. So the first thing that comes to my mind is just knowing what a Christian is. I think back to, Mark and Luke, take up your cross and die daily. Like, this is we're sacrificing. Like, this is a good sacrifice, but we're killing ourselves daily. That can also be literal. So be prepared to follow Jesus wherever.
Right.
Make sure you you know the cost, right? Like you use that quite a bit. Know the cost of discipleship. Realize what you're taking account. So anyway, I think those are good things to remind our family. We are dying daily to serve the Lord Jesus Christ.
Right. And I think you have to have those conversations with your kids. Like even when my kids were very young, I was just telling them, hey, this is kind of what the expectation is for a Christian is, you know, if you get to choose life and abandonment to Christ or death and being faithful to him, I want you to like really quickly, I'm going to be faithful to him. Right. If it costs my life. I think a really helpful way to do that is read stories of martyrs.
I agree.
To your children or to your whole household.
Yes.
So we read I forgot what the book's called. It's like the 10 boys who did blank series.
Okay.
But that one has like 10 boys who never gave in. I think it's what it is.
Nice.
Is 10 martyrs. But also there's like the Fox's Book of Martyrs and modern day would be like Jesus Freaks and that kind of thing.
The Hiding Place is a really good one.
Yep. So I think having those kind of examples that are floating about in your house.
I think that's good. Yes. Biographies, those types of historical accounts are very, very good things.
It's a historical way of producing faithful Christians because that's why the Fox's Book of Martyrs exists.
Yeah. And you're going to then see that, you might be worried at this time, like how's my faith going to hold up? But in the end, it's God that gives you the faith and the strength to hold up. So it's good.
But we don't want to raise up cowards, you know? So Revelation 21:8, cowards go to hell. So we want to raise up courageous kids.
Exactly. So once Peter was put in prison, the reaction of the church was to pray earnestly. That's what they did.
Yep.
And there was payoff.
So earnest prayer, and man, it makes a big change.
It does.
It's really easy to, when things like this are going down, like, I don't know, just kind of try to do business as normal or get down and bummed and that kind of thing. But it seems like they are taking a completely different approach. They're like, oh, so things are really going bad, so we're going to set up extra meetings.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. So this may not have anything to do with it, but as we're talking about earnest prayer, when your most recent sermon in Habakkuk verses 1-11, and we were talking about you made the mention of, are we passionately going to God for the injustice of what's going on around us? And then you made a mention of, it's not good enough when we heard that Missouri passed Amendment 3, that we just had, oh, terrible, like that's a bad thing. Just thoughts of like, that's bad. Like, are we going to God passionately? In the same sense for a church, are we earnestly going to God? It's not good enough. It wouldn't have been good enough for the church to be like, oh man, poor Peter.
Right.
No, they acted on that in prayer earnestly. So I don't know. Well, let's move to the next section if you're ready.
Let's do it.
We have a jailbreak. Peter is in jail and an angel comes and releases him.
Yeah.
So that's strange. Here's what's strange about it. He was put in prison by the king, by the ruler of Israel, Herod. I mean, we know Rome is completely over this, but Herod was kind of the governor at that time over Israel. He was put there. And I thought Romans 13 just said, obey the government.
Well, Romans 13 had been written.
Oh, it was before Romans 13.
Yeah.
That's why God broke him out. Okay. Unique time. Okay. That's why God broke him out, because he hasn't talked about Romans 13 yet. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good enough reason for me.
Yeah. It's super funny because he is the one who wrote First Peter that talks about, it's another big section on honoring the king.
Yes. But God, like he broke out, like he went against the king's orders. Again, this goes back to that conversation we had about can Christians rebel against the government? Hierarchy, like obeying God. Peter was just obeying God.
Yeah. Jesus is the reason for treason.
That's good. That's good. Not only the season, but also treason. You should put that on a shirt.
Yeah, I'll let someone else steal the idea and make some money off of it. Justin, if you're listening, there you go.
We could have a 17:6 podcast store, like on our website. We're going to sell this shirt. Yeah.
Jesus is the reason for treason. Okay. So yeah, I do think it's a really good point. Like Peter is definitely defying government or civil authority at this point.
Yes.
And not only is he defying civil authority, like this is actually the Lord sending an angel for him to do just that.
Yes. And the outcome is people will die.
That's I definitely want to spend some time talking about that here in a second. I think it's interesting how the angel comes, and the three things that the angel says is get up quickly, dress yourself and put on your sandals, and wrap your cloak around you and follow me. The reason I think this is interesting is because a lot of times when we think of like supernatural deliverance, and that's what this is right now. This is supernatural deliverance. It's not salvation in an eschatological way,
Right.
but it's he's being released from prison, so he's being delivered. And this is, to use a theological term, this is synergistic.
Okay.
So meaning that the Lord is definitely the one that's like lifting the heavy weight, but he is still required to get up quickly, dress yourself, put on your sandals, and wrap your cloak and follow him. So in this situation, that's what it looks like here. So it's not like if you're expecting God to deliver you, you can just kind of, I'm just going to sit here and, expect to be transported over to some safe area.
Right.
Like it might require action on your part.
Yeah.
That's what happens here.
That's a really good point. Yeah. You're not going to be zapped into these clothes.
Right, yeah.
He did it. Yeah.
Yep. He's not raptured into a different spot.
Good use of language there.
Yeah.
That was great.
Next thing I have is that he did not know what was being done. I love that.
So confused. Get up quickly. I guess.
It mentions that he was asleep too. So he's like still in like this daze, like what is going on right now? But so obedience, even when we're not sure what in the world is going on, I think that's helpful.
That is.
And it also gives us permission to not know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And still just, I just one command at a time, I guess. And I'm just
Exactly.
going to follow that one thing. And then the last thing I wanted to point out is how urgent this was, and get up quickly. Sometimes this goes back to the uncertainty thing, but sometimes we just have to do things that it has to be done now. Like we don't have time to think about it and pray about it. Like after the angel says, get up quickly. It's not like Peter's like, let me pray about that. Yeah. There's not time for that.
Wait a second. You told me to get up quickly. You're leading me out. Didn't the civil government tell me to come in here? I should really seek the Lord to make sure I'm not disobeying where I shouldn't be disobeying. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would have sounded very reasonable to most people. Like, this supernatural creature just kind of showed up in my prison cell and was telling me to get up and go. Like, right. So, and then after the end of verse 10, I think this is funny. Immediately, so this is after he gets out. Immediately, the angel left him.
So like,
okay, bye.
All right, we got you here. I'm out. Here. Yeah.
And no explanation.
Yeah.
He's just coming. All right, see ya.
That is really funny.
Yeah. Which means that he has to use practical wisdom to get the rest of the way home.
Where the heck do I go?
Yeah.
What house should I go to? I've heard there are people praying for me, maybe. So we'll go there. We'll check that out. Maybe knock on the door. Maybe they'll let me in. Maybe not. Maybe the servant girl drank a little bit too much and has no idea what's going on. I don't know. Did you have anything else? Verse 12, I think you had something. Or did you go
verse 12. Just the fact that many were gathered together and were praying. So we see that prayer meeting happening again.
Okay. And that's where Peter's going to end up. He's going to go to John Mark's mother's house, and he's going to knock on the door, and they're not going to open it because they don't believe that it's Peter, which is really funny.
Yeah. So real quickly, John Mark is introduced at this point.
Okay.
So just from a narrative standpoint, we have now introduced what's going to become another main character.
Good point.
But it's in a real subtle way.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
We're at his mom's house now.
Who's this guy? Oh yeah, he's the guy that ran off naked in the Gospel of Mark. What? If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you don't know, all right, here, as Jesus is getting arrested in Mark, there is this guy that flees with no clothes on. Tradition says that that's the writer of the Gospel of Mark, who happens to be John Mark. Allegedly, he's running naked in his own gospel. But anyway, so that
I understand why he didn't mention his name there.
Yeah. Who would want to? So Peter's knocking on this door. The servant girl, Rhoda, doesn't answer. She's like, this can't be Peter. No one believes that it's Peter. It's funny because of all the miracles that's happened. Specifically, Peter has been in the center of all of this. And like, there's no way Peter's released from prison.
Right. It's just so funny.
Yeah.
So she tells them, hey, it's Peter. And they're like, you're out of your mind.
And you're so out of your mind. It's probably just his guardian angel.
Yeah.
No, that's really what it says. It says in verse 15, they kept saying, no, it's just his angel.
So evidently it's more believable for his guardian angel to show up at the door
than Peter to be
released from prison.
Right.
That's mind blowing to me.
So does that give any credence to how severe the sentence was from Herod? Like this is final, which I didn't get that until just now.
Right.
Like maybe when Herod says something, there's like everyone believes that it's going to happen. So anyway,
yeah, but I do think that's I don't know if it's a comfort or something to. These are Christians. These are Christians who have seen some cool things, and they even have some level of unbelief.
right.
Right. And I don't want to comfort Christians and be like, oh, it's okay to not believe that God's actually doing things. But at the same time, it's not abnormal.
Right.
Like it seems to be historically the case, even in the Bible.
Yeah.
So again, not trying to comfort, but just showing.
You're right. Right. We're all human. The other thing that I'd like to talk about is they said it's his angel. What do we do with this idea that the people in John Mark's mother's house, the church praying earnestly, think that it's his guardian angel? What the heck do we all have guardian angels? I don't know what to do with that. It's worth pointing out. But
it is worth pointing out from the 2 seconds of research that I did. It showed that, especially in the Talmud, it mentions guardian angels.
Okay.
But also in some of the earlier Second Temple literature, that there was a common Jewish belief in guardian angels.
If you would have asked me or brought this up to me 2 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, that's just all superstition. I don't know anymore if that would just be superstition. And here's why. I read Michael Heiser's Supernatural book. Now it totally left me. But anyway, and he talks about how these little g gods in the Bible were actually deities and supernatural beings. And I'm on board with that. It makes a lot of sense. So when they say it's his angel, I don't think it's superstition. I think there might be some credence behind it.
Right. So I think that it could be the case, very well could be the case. Like there are guardian angels, but we don't ever see people praying to guardian angels. It's not like Peter's in prison, like, all right, angel, come and rescue me. That's not what's going on here.
Yeah, we don't see people praying to guardian angels, and we don't see people praying to dead saints.
Oh, yeah.
I just throwing that out. I don't know. I just thought I'd mention that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. Peter then would you say he flees at this point?
It looks like that to me. So then he departed and went to another place. Like, why did he depart? Probably because he's using wisdom and he's getting the heck out of there because he just escaped from prison.
Yeah. A serious offense at this point.
Yeah.
Again, the severity of what happened to him. So
especially considering what we're about to read in the next 2 verses.
Yes.
But he departs, and not only is he in history departing from Jerusalem at this point, which he is doing, but he's also kind of departing from Luke's perspective. He's departing as the main character of the book of Acts.
That's true. Yes. So he tells, what is it, Mary? Is it John Mark's mother, Mary? Well, he tells the church in that house to tell James, which this James is the brother of Jesus, and the brothers, what has happened. So something's gone on now. The brother of Jesus, James, has a higher position within the Jerusalem church. That's also interesting.
Yeah, he's called out specifically.
Yes, but it doesn't say exactly how that happened. It's just within this time of peace, within this time of persecution, things have happened. Organization has happened within the church. James is now prominent. Also, yeah, Peter fled to another place. I think he probably went to Rome.
That's where he became the Pope, right?
Yep, that's where he became the Pope. It tells us right here, this is where it starts. He went to another place, and we all know that's Rome.
Yeah. Where could another place possibly be?
Probably not just in a small town with his wife to spend his life quietly, which that didn't happen. But I don't know. If we're using our imagination of saying he's going to Rome, he could also just go to another village and hang out with his wife for a little bit.
Yeah. Take it easy.
Yeah.
I've spent some time in prison. I've done some good things for the gospel. I'm going to sleep in and stuff.
Yeah. Say hi to the wife and kids. Okay. Does this mean Peter is not the leading apostle? Since he's leaving, like you said, he's now not the main character of Acts.
I mean, he's definitely leaving other people in charge in this area for sure. So, I mean, his teaching, his legacy is definitely going to remain there.
Yeah.
But he's going to be going somewhere else where the action does not seem to be happening.
Yeah.
And evidently there's some wisdom in that.
Exactly. So I don't know, just thinking about how Peter's been at the forefront of this, and then thinking about how Jesus said he was going to build his church on this rock, which I would take as Peter. Like Peter's time has come and gone, and he's moving off the scene. That's totally fine.
That's actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that's just practical instruction for leaders. Like,
Right.
you need to start preparing for your absence, especially if there's a time of peace. Like, you should be training up a James to be able to
That's a good point.
get into your spot.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to what happened to the guards.
So verse 18, this caused no little disturbance.
Okay.
Yep. If you are a Christian turning the world upside down, you should expect to cause some disturbances.
That's true.
No little disturbance.
That's true. And
Point that out real fast.
I think it's great. And then we're going to kind of think back to Psalm 110 about how the bodies hit the floor. And here we see
Can I read the verse real fast? Psalm
Absolutely.
110.
Absolutely.
All right. So the Lord is at your right hand. He will shatter kings on the day of his wrath. He will execute judgment among the nations, filling them with corpses.
Oh my gosh. So what happens here in verse 19?
Well, you have to keep in mind, Psalm 110 is all about the second coming of Christ. That's all happening in the future.
Oh boy. So what's happening in verse 19? We have the guards being put to death because of the Lord breaking Peter out of jail. Huh.
Whoops. Psalm 110 slipped in there.
Okay. Well, that's weird.
That happens sometimes.
This is a unique time. It's a unique time in the Bible. This doesn't really mean
Before
what
First Peter was written.
as you read it and you're interpreting it as you are reading it, and that's obviously the plain reading of it. It's not what you think it is. So
Right, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. In all seriousness, this is the Lord's wrath taking place.
Exactly.
Through King Herod, right before the wrath of God comes on King Herod himself.
Right. Through worms.
Through worms. Gotta tie that back in. Okay. So, I don't know. One could see that this is like or unjust, because these guards were trying to do their job, and they literally got like supernatural, like in a natural world, they were doing what they were supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
Like
They're just
they
following
checked all
orders.
the boxes,
I'm just doing what I'm told, sir.
but there's a supernatural occurrence which led to their death. And if this really was unjust, then the Lord would have intervened to save them.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But because these are wicked men,
Yep.
and even though in this case scenario, like they didn't neglect any of their responsibility, they just got beaten by supernatural beings. That's why they're put to death.
So when you are faced of following orders to persecute someone unjustly, don't do it.
That's a really good application there.
Yeah. Don't just follow orders. That's what gets you in trouble. All right. Are we ready to move on to the last section?
Yes, let's do it.
So
We got a minute and 56 seconds.
okay, here we go. Herod went to Tyre and Sidon, and he was talking with some things and made peace with Tyre and Sidon, and they said some words to him and said, "This man, this is not the words of man. This is words of a God." And Herod was pretty excited about that, and he did not give glory to God.
Right.
God struck him down, but specifically the order matters. He was eaten by worms and breathed his last breath.
Yeah. It's an unfortunate turn of events.
Yeah. Was it bum worms? We don't know, but it was worms.
Right. So God resists the proud. We've read that once or twice.
We have,
in the
yes.
scriptures, and we see that here with King Herod. So there's a Jesus versus Herod.
Yes.
We are seeing, well, here he was eaten by worms and breathed his last. Next verse, but the word of God increased and multiplied, unlike Herod.
That's right. Could you read that verse again in Psalm 110 about the kings?
Yeah. So the Lord is at your right hand. He will shatter kings on the day of his wrath.
Oh, wasn't Herod kind of like a higher up official?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
kind of
interesting.
King Herod. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
So, first off, a lot of times people have this unbiblical picture of like a mean, wrathful Old Testament God and a nice, merciful New Testament God. And that we read about God's wrath in the Old Testament time after time, but we're definitely seeing it here in
Right.
Acts chapter 12, which is post Jesus.
Yes.
Like Jesus is up in heaven at this point. He's been crucified. He has risen from the dead, and we're still seeing God pour out wrath
Exactly.
in just the circumstances of life.
Yeah. Thank goodness. That means he's a just God.
It's a consistent,
Yeah.
just God.
Exactly.
So the Old Testament characteristics of God are the same New Testament characteristics of God.
Yes.
So if we look at things like Sodom and Gomorrah in the Old Testament, or the book of Nahum in the Old Testament, we can look at the New Testament and know that he's still the same. He's still consistent. So he's still going to take down kings like this.
It's wonderful. Well, do you have anything else? That you ended really well. If you don't have anything else,
I have nothing
I
else.
would just end there. Even if you have something else, we're just ending there because that was amazing. All right. So this is the, again, last episode of the year. Thanks for watching. I don't have anything else to say except for subscribe, comment, tell your friends over this break that no one else is producing content. Just send this video to them. That'd be cool. And Peter, thank you for watching. You know who you are. And yeah, join us on the next episode. Thanks for watching the 17:6 podcast, where we help you turn the world upside down by the Lordship of Christ.